But tonight I wanted to just kind of make fun of a law firm. I just wanted to make fun of them, but I do things and I say funny things, but this is a serious matter. I don't take it lightly because FinCEN, I mean, just like any government agency that wants to get your money or get access to your information, they're very serious about it. They will do many nasty things to try to get it. So what I'm telling you is with that understanding, okay, this is not a joke, but I do want to point out some of the things that are being promoted, the way it's being promoted, okay, especially by law firms. I think it's important that we understand and what is going on here and the issues. And I'll go over that. I've got one of my clients was nice enough to send a letter, the body of a letter she got from a law firm, and I scrubbed it a bit. I don't want them complaining that I mentioned the law firm name here. I think I got rid of most of it. I think I got rid of it. And yeah, we definitely are going to be talking about money, cryptos, investing. I do want to go over this letter on FinCEN, and I think I'm going to end up talking about FinCEN. It's important. So the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, works with the IRS, and they also, well, I mean, the IRS does deal with Title 18 issues. Title 18 is criminal, so that's what gets my attention. And FinCEN is more focused on filling out disclosure forms, to put it simply. Okay, and so their premise, the agency's premise, FinCEN, is that they're wanting to protect national security and prevent money laundering and whatever these noble efforts are. My question to the FinCEN agency is, why haven't you done it yet? You've been saying that for 50 years. You haven't succeeded. And now you want disclosure from small business owners with no net worth, and somehow that is supposed to help you. I don't buy it. But nonetheless, we have the regulations on the books. And in my opinion is that on the regulations, anytime you have a regulation of this nature, a regulation is basically a lien. Okay, it's the taking of property. A lien is the taking of property. So from everything I've read, and you've heard my opinion on this before, I don't see a legal duty to become a reporting company for anybody. But I do see that if you become a reporting company, I see other obligations that come with it. And I don't know exactly what those are, but this law firm, you'll see in this letter, they make it sound so sweet. Okay. And then we're going to go over that. Let me just bring this up. And here's why I do this. I want to help you have an understanding about what's going on in these matters. And what better example to use than a law firm? Because as you know, law firms practice attornment. They're not practicing law. Attornment is the taking of property in a system of fealty. This is where we live right now. Okay, this is our economy. It's a feudal system, and lawyers take the property. They take it from one person and give it to another. That's being very vague, but we'll see. Let's see how this works. So I'm going to bring up some questions. Let me do a share screen, and let's go over this letter. So I just copied this out of the email I got from my client so that, I just put it into a blank file here. And this is how the lawyer addressed it. They are so horrible at marketing. But they sent this to their captive audience, right? Their clients. This woman was, I believe, a client of this law firm. So this is what they're saying. Why not start the year with some additional requirements? What? How does that make me happy? I don't know. But they're talking about the Corporate Transparency Act and the 2024 requirement to report beneficial owner information. This is what I explained before. Beneficial owner information is the same as taxpayer return information or taxpayer information that is defined under Title 26, Section 6103. And the reason why I say that's important is because FinCEN works with IRS regs in that area. And if the Financial Crimes Network wanted the information, the beneficial owner information, it could simply ask for that information from the IRS. It's very simple. Here's why the FinCEN cannot do that, because the IRS would be in trouble. The IRS is legally prohibited from disclosing it unless there are certain conditions met. So if FinCEN wanted your information, for example, the one that this law firm is saying you have to give up, it would have to be involved with a tax matter or conducting a criminal investigation. Otherwise, the Secretary of the Treasury is going to say, no, sorry, we can't give it to you. You have to ask, this agency has to ask the IRS through the Secretary of the Treasury for this beneficial owner information. So why bother? Why do that? Well, okay, so let's say FinCEN can't do that. So FinCEN says, well, let's just go to the bank. I mean, when you guys go to the bank, right, the bank asks for your driver's license and all this stuff, right? Same thing FinCEN wants. Well, why can't FinCEN go to the bank and ask for it? Because the bank is going to say, sorry, we'll get in trouble. They actually can't give it. It's interesting. So what FinCEN is left with is scaring you into giving up your right to privacy that is protected by the tax code. So let me just go through this letter here. So they're talking about U.S. beneficial ownership information, which is your name, address, date of birth, SSN. You can get that from your driver's license record, by the way. You know, it's all connected. Not to say that we use it. We don't use it when we register companies. We use it when we open bank accounts, but that information is protected. Um, so they say, okay, this CTA, the Corporate Transparency Act, started a couple of years ago, and they're talking about it's supposed to curb illicit finance. That is not what it's doing. It is to prevent money laundering. Okay, that's what the act says. It is to protect national security, human trafficking, prevent that. Those things, those very important things. It's not about curbing illicit finance, okay, like this lawyer said, whoever wrote this. This is technically incorrect. So it's saying here that it requires many companies doing business in the United States to report information. I don't think it does. I think once you report, then you're required to report. So far is what I can conclude. Beneficial ownership information, okay, they're not saying that this is an annual report. So what they're saying in this letter is that, hey, just know that the CTA requires this report to be done once and then you're done, unless you make some changes to the information that you reported. So it's saying that reporting companies, this is important, reporting companies that are created or registered in this country before this year, they have to file by January. Disclose this information to FinCEN on a report through the Financial Crimes Network. Let's call it, it's an interactive website is how it's being done. All right. So they're talking about that, and they give this little cute little smiley face about the time periods that remain. It's not funny. Okay. Reporting companies created or registered, let's see, in 2024. So now, so I did one like January 3rd, I think it was. I did one John J. Singleton LLC because I told you guys I'm going to do it and I'm not going to comply. Maybe I'm stupid, but I really believe that they don't have the legal right to do these things. And I'll demonstrate why I think that. But there's a time period as well. So let's say you're presumably you register a company, an LLC in one of the states. You have 90 days to following a public notice. I don't know what that's gonna. Maybe it's gonna be in the Federal Register. I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be on the news. We'll find out. Maybe it'll be through your Secretary of State's office. We'll see. To then report this information, we'll get to that in a second. So I changed the law firm name to Associates PC. It's already started this process with some of the clients, right? The fee we're charging is $100. We'll charge you $100 to report to FinCEN for you. Now, this is important. So reporting companies and the law firm reporting for you. Okay, so if you want to do it, here's what we'll do. So anyone who has 25% ownership. Now, I have something I'm going to announce next week at the Dallas conference to totally get around this 25% ownership. Well, I don't want to talk about it right now, but we will. So anyone with decision-making authority, okay, now that is established in the operating agreement. Remember, I told you guys this is not disclosed anywhere. And you have protections from the disclosure in your operating agreement, and we covered that. If you want, remind me and I will talk about it again. Okay, there's two things that you can rely upon so that you don't need to disclose your operating agreement. So far in 30 years, I've not had a client need to do that. I did have a couple that were in the middle of a lawsuit that the operating agreement was under subpoena. And so I reviewed the subpoena and I revised the operating agreement so it would defeat the subpoena before we disclosed it because no one ever could compare it with an older version. So we just did that. So it was useless to them. But other than that, you never want to give it up unless it's under a court order. So far, I've not seen that with any of my clients. So what they want to do is they want to collect the home address for anyone who has a 25% ownership interest in the company. Now, remember, this information is taxpayer information. They want your driver's license. Now, that is connected to many things, right? It's connected to your SSN, right? Did you know your driver's license number is an encryption that you can decrypt into identifying information about yourself? And I can even show you, there's actual websites that show you how to decrypt your driver's license number. It'll even tell you your name. It even spells your name, the whole number, if you decrypt it properly. So there's a lot of information on your driver's license, face of the driver's license, including biometric data. All right. So, and then of course, this law firm can facilitate the process. Of course, that's what they do. They practice attorneyment. So here's my question to the law firm. Since when do laws conflict with each other? You said there's a requirement, okay? There's a requirement that I disclose it. Well, I already have privacy rights that protect this information. So how am I then required to disclose it if it's already protected? Am I required to waive a right? Am I required to waive a statutory right that you guys acknowledge? I don't think so. But at the same time, let's look at it this way. If I were to give this information to this law firm, and yeah, I get attorney-client privilege, but they're going to disclose it. They're going to disclose this information. I don't know if it's subject to attorney-client privilege, but that would be one of my questions. How does attorney-client privilege relate to my disclosure of this information to your law firm so that you can prepare this report that I'm paying you for? How am I going to transmit this data? This is sensitive data. And who's responsible for a data breach during the transmission? Because you're telling me I'm required to, I'm paying you to collect it, and I'm going to send it to you from where? My AOL account, my Gmail account? Are you telling me how to send it in a secured way? Did you give me a secured link? Is there an encryption? What are you doing? This is very careless. And it seems very small, like a small matter, but it's actually not. If you've heard reports in the news about companies having data breaches, see what a big deal that is. There are even laws in the books that require companies who have a substantial data breach to publish that to everyone. It's very important. So this law firm is asking for this information as if you would just ask for, I don't know, what the weather is. Okay. It's very important. So my question to the law firm is, first of all, if you're telling me I'm required to report this in some way, whether through you or through my own efforts, how are my rights to the same data being protected under the tax code covered? Is there a requirement for me to do this when the tax code says that that same identical data is protected? Am I required to waive that right? I don't think so. I'd like an answer from the law firm. If I were her, the client who sent me this, I would ask that question. Then who would take custody of that data? If I give you this data, I mean, I'm just talking about the driver's license. I mean, that kind of freaks me out. Driver's license, man, there's a lot of information with that. And when you connect a driver's license with other things like a home address, I mean, that usually is on the driver's license, but sometimes you have a different address, right? You connect those together and you're giving it to somebody under what conditions? Who has custody of that information and how long are you going to keep it? What is your data retention policy? What is your duty? For example, does the law firm have a duty to FinCEN? If the law firm is going to disclose information that it obtained from its client, where's the privacy there? Is there any waiver? Do I have to sign a waiver? Now, remember what I said before about pay attention to this use of the term reporting companies, okay? Reporting companies. What the heck is that? It's a company that reports. It's very simple. So if the law firm is collecting this from your company, your individual data, because you registered a company, because you have an interest in the company, is the law firm becoming the reporting company, or is it making your company the reporting company? And if it does that, which I think is what they're doing, does your company have to obtain a FinCEN number, an identifying number, which I believe is what's going on here? Okay, who's liable here? I'll bet you anything it's not the attorneys. Now, I believe under the regulations that the collection of the information needs to be authenticated or certified for accuracy. So, I mean, if you give someone your driver's license, that in itself probably is enough, right? They don't have to check the database and confirm that the information is correct. They could probably look at it on its face and say, well, it's a driver's license. You know, it's probably correct, unless they went to a lot of trouble to fabricate a phony driver's license, which is actually pretty easy to detect. So who is going to certify the accuracy of this information? Is the law firm who's collecting it for my company? Or if my company is being made the reporting company by this law firm, am I going to be given an intake form that says I'm certifying as to the accuracy of the information? Am I then liable? Which I think is what they're going to do. You need to ask this, right? I think I'm going to send them a letter and just ask them anyways. I'm going to ask them these questions. In fact, I will do that. I'll share it with you guys. Now, who has the liability if I give this information out? Let's say this is hypothetical, but let's say I only give this information out only to this law firm, only. And then within a year, I'm a victim of identity theft. Can I say that there's a plausible relationship connection between the law firm, my disclosure, and then my identity theft? Can I say the law firm is liable for that? And if it is, what coverage does it have? What protocols does it have in place to provide me with a remedy? Does it have insurance for data breach? It's a big deal here. You're collecting sensitive information, okay, without any concern about the nature of the information or protecting it from unauthorized, let's say, disclosures, okay? How is this information being transmitted to FinCEN? Does FinCEN have a secure website? I doubt it. Even if it has a secure website, it's probably subject to a brute force attack or something. Who knows? I don't know. They didn't say here. One thing I would ask this law firm is, what is your data retention policy with regard to the collection, use, and storage of this information? How long will you store it? How long are you required to store it? What regulation imposes that duty on you? And what indemnification can you offer me? Or what insurance do you have in the event of a data breach? Because maybe they have to keep this for 6 years. I don't know. And for how many people are they going to keep it? Right? Yeah. So those are real important. Who's the reporting company and who's going to certify the accuracy? I guarantee they're going to make you sign a bunch of forms when you give them this stuff because they're going to transfer liability. That's what lawyers do. They transfer liability. That's the taking of property. So you see, I made it through here without laughing too much, but I want to share with you the language and understanding about how to look at these things. You're going to see more of these letters. Some of these will probably be terrifying. I mean, I've already seen news articles, and they're by law firms. They scare you. That's how they operate. They scare people, and then the people hire them as the expectation because they're scared. So I don't think we should be scared. I think we should look at the law for ourselves. So for me, this is what I explained last week. Uh, I'm so confident, unless I'm just not that smart, okay, but I am so confident that I will be the corporate compliance officer for your LLC if you want me to. And I always tell you this, I don't think it's necessary. If you want me to, I will do it. I will represent your company as corporate counsel with FinCEN if FinCEN contacts your company. Now, here's how this works. Notice how this law firm is telling you it's probably going to make your company the reporting company. So there has to be a reporting company. What I'm saying to you is for your LLC, I will be the reporting company, not your company. And I will be the whatever certifying officer, whatever is required. I will take on that role and communication with the FinCEN agency. And I'll tell you this right now, I'm not going to ask you for your information. I'm going to tell FinCEN that I asked for the information and you expressed these concerns. Therefore, I'm not able to give the information, and I'm going to ask FinCEN to tell me what authority I have to require the disclosure and what liability I have once I get it, you see. What authority do I have to act in your capacity? Because FinCEN is the police. Understand that, right? It'd be like if the cop stopped you one day and said, "Hey, you mind watching the intersection here in case anybody runs a red light? Let me know." No, we don't have to do that. We hired them to do it. That's what FinCEN is doing to us. They're going to the private sector and they're saying, "Hey, you should do all these things that we would have to do in the event of such and such, but you should do them now." Oh, and we're not going to protect you. We're not going to indemnify you, but just go and do it anyways. Because if you don't, we're going to impose these harsh penalties on you. Okay. And everybody's like running around. Oh my gosh, we have to do these things. And the lawyers are saying, yeah, you should hire us so we can do it for you, make you more liable. So just keep that in mind. But anyways, that's what I want to say about the FinCEN item. If you guys want to ask me, please ask me some questions on that because I missed stuff. As I talk about it more, I'll be sure to be more comprehensive.
Hey, John, I just actually filed it because my CPA sent me an email stating that if I willfully ignored it, I would be fined $10,000. So
Yeah,
I filed it.
ask them these questions. Watch this video again, ask them, how does this conflict with, and I would just tell him he's giving you legal advice. And I'm gonna suggest that it's to your detriment. It's bad legal advice. See how he likes that. I mean, I don't know what kind of relationship you have with him. This really gets me under my skin for people to do this. Don't be scared to do this, guys. I mean, I'm not saying you should just always listen to me. I'm just saying you should think for yourself. I read this stuff. I've been talking about this for almost a year, since April of last year, and nobody cared. I wouldn't either, I guess, but this is my job. That's what I do.
I'm going to post in
Yeah,
the chat what he actually put
please,
in
please.
the email.
Thank you. Very nice. Just to give you another example. All right. And if your accountant or attorney is telling you this stuff, ask them these questions. Laws do not conflict with each other. If there's a regulation that says I have to disclose, you're calling it beneficial owner information. I'm calling it taxpayer information. It's the same exact thing. If laws do not conflict with each other, how am I supposed to disclose it when my disclosure is protected under 26 USC 6103 of the tax code. That's where the conversation would end right there. But go on. I would say, what happens if I disclose it? Who's going to certify its accuracy? Who's liable for that? And how am I going to disclose it? And who's the custodian of the information once I give it to you? You're going to give it to FinCEN, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, those
So,
are good. Those are good points. You know, I trust my
yeah.
CPA, so when he sent it, I did it.
And we all do. We should. But just you got to think for yourself. I mean, I've talked to so many people where they relied on their accounting person, CPA, to file returns and he didn't, or he just did the wrong thing. You know, they don't care. They don't have the liability. They literally don't have the liability. Even though they sign as the return preparer, they're not liable. So you have to be responsible.
So would you suggest me setting up a new LLC now?
I wouldn't do anything. I would just wait and see what happens. I would less is better. Less is more in that case. Less is going to be more effective. If you've done it already, just wait and see what happens. Because yeah, if you need to, you can do something, set up a new company. You could. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think he made you the reporting company though. So just keep that in mind. Now, and I did. I said last time and the time before, um, even complying. I believe you don't have to, but even complying, I don't believe it's a problem in terms of creating a tax liability because KYC does not affect property rights. It might disclose them, but so what? That's why I write these the way I do. And since the 90s, I've been writing it with the idea that someone's going to examine everything I've done 3 years from now when I'm no longer around for the client, right? For example. And so far, it's not been a problem. And when I started in the 90s, I would do reorganizations and I would use LLCs to stop the IRS from pillaging the company so they could keep on paying their employees and function and stay in business and then make out a reasonable deal with the IRS if they wanted to. It gave them the power. And I did all that right in front of the IRS. Right when I'm sitting across the table from them last week, I just shut down the company. I did something else and new bank account and all this stuff. And they won't even talk about it. They can't because it's an innocent party. So it's nice to be able to do it going forward before you have any problems. And I know there's never been a problem. I've never had a problem with that. Using limited liability companies to establish property rights. So KYC, I don't like what FinCEN is doing. I think there's no legal duty. I think you should make your own determination, but you know, I wouldn't. This is why we're in this situation now because everybody says, well, okay, it's just this little thing and we have to do it. And now we have a situation where if you want a bank account, you can't get one unless you get a tax number. That's not a problem, but there's no legal duty to get a tax number. The bank just wants you to do it. So just something to keep in mind. I mean, I think it's about time we start realizing that we have property rights. They are very important rights. They deal with our money, they deal with communications. The banking systems and the government systems, executive agencies, they want to maintain liens on these property rights and they want to essentially take the property rights. They want to limit your use of the property rights. How dare they? These are important matters that are useful and necessary in our lives to make our lives work properly. And they want to get in our business. I think it's time we do something about it. That's why I'm willing to take it on. I mean, I hope there's not a problem, but I look for the day when FinCEN says to me, hey, why didn't you report this? Please ask me. So, but yeah, I'm going to write this letter to this law firm as if I'm a prospective client, a scared prospective client, right? And see what they do. All right, I'll share it with you guys. All right. Yeah, it's probably a stupid thing, but I'm gonna do it. Somebody has to do it, okay? And this is what I do. So you guys do your thing, I'll do mine. So all right, you guys know everything then? We don't have any more questions? No questions? All right. Guys, I get so angry when I hear this. You're doing what your CPA said, and you're doing everything right. I'm not criticizing you. It just makes me angry that they're getting away with this, and they're gonna have all these reports, and then the FinCEN is gonna look around and go, "Well, everybody else is doing it." What's wrong with you? So yeah, and this fine $10,000, and I would just say, what if I'm wrong? What if they want to fine me 10,000? In my case, it might be like 10 million. Who knows? And I think just 10,000 is excessive for what? For 10,000 is excessive to fine me when I didn't disclose something that I believed that there was no legal duty to disclose, and when FinCEN had access to the data. They could have gone to the IRS. FinCEN could have gone to my bank. FinCEN could have gone online for a buck 380 in Intellius.com and got the information. In fact, by the way, each of you can go on to Intellius.com and probably find out all kinds of information about everybody. Just give a name, right? It's kind of scary. You should go there and search on your name for $2. You can go find out. You might not sleep tonight if you find out what people can know about you. But why can't FinCEN do that? The data's already there. Why can't they go to the DMV? Look, all they have to do is go to the Secretary of State, see who's listed on the articles, and go to the DMV or Intellius and pull it. And they can make a contract. In fact, they could just make those companies, these are private companies, they could just make them give it. Why are they telling us to do it? Oh, somebody's talking about, yeah. So what you see in the news about the BOI penalties, that's on the books. Those are the regulations. What I'm saying to you is they wouldn't stick if you have an LLC. There's no legal duty that would incur these penalties. That's what I'm saying. I would love to have someone prove me wrong. I read everything. I don't see it. I don't see the legal duty. Please tell me how I'm wrong. I will admit it. Yeah. All right. What are you asking? When do I need to file a report? No, I'm saying that you do not. Now, the choke point here is when it comes to FinCEN reporting, the banks would say you have to have a FinCEN number in order for us to open an account. I see those days coming. I mean, they might just say we need your biometric data. They might say, here, send us your retinal scan or something, um, or your face scan or something. I don't know what they'll do, biometric data. But then that's when I would have my company, if I'm working with you, I would get the FinCEN number for my company, and I would be the reporting company organizer for your company. That should be enough to open the account. This is my understanding. I could be wrong, but I think that's what would happen. I don't want your company to be a reporting company. It's not necessary. And again, there's something new. I don't want to do it now, but I'm gonna mention this. I'm gonna go into detail on this in Dallas, and it will be recorded. But there's a way to get around this BOI stuff completely. If we work together, that's what we have to do. All right, you're asking me, Chris, what's the full 26 USC tax code? It's 26 USC, but also include 27 USC, and also include 26 Code of Federal Regulations and 27 Code of Federal Regulations. That's the entire tax code. Hundreds and hundreds of books. By the way, I meant to mention this to you. So Financial Crimes Enforcement Network it's promulgated regulations. These are not laws. The regulations are within the purview of the actual statute, which is known as the Currency Transaction uh, Transparency Act. Okay. Uh, I believe that's all under the National Defense Authorization Act. These are statutes. They're codified. I forget where the statutes are, maybe Title 31, I forget. But FinCEN then has the duty, the director does, to promulgate, to write and publish rules on implementing the statutes. So here you have an agency that's in parallel with the IRS. They're both created by statutes, and then FinCEN writes regulations to administer the statutes, okay? Well, the statute controls. You cannot have a regulation that has more authority than it's given by the statute, okay? Because that comes from Congress. So you have FinCEN regulations. Let's say I'm moving my hand downward to say that they have less priority than the statute that created FinCEN. So you have the regulations down here, right? And you have the IRS over here that has 26 USC 6103. What is that? That's a statute. That's a statute, cannot be overcome by regulations. So even then, laws don't conflict with each other, and regulations are, let's call it, subservient to statutes. Understand how this stuff works together.